Hello viewers, and welcome to another edition of our women's program, Kar in Pay. Today we have taken up a very serious topic to discuss in this program, and the topic is workplace harassment. Now when we talk about workplace harassment, I guess it exists in all forms of workplaces. Now workplace harassment, whether it is a mental or psychological or whether it is a physical, well, it is one of the most pervasive form in today's professional workplaces that is there in today's times. Well, as I said, mental harassment at the workplaces is a kind of bullying, and it can have a very deep impact on the person who becomes a victim of such abusive behavior. Now, it can take several forms of behavioral aspects by the person who brings such kind of abuse on the person, and well, it can be intimidation, it can be threat, it can be humiliation, and it can also be in the form of spreading malicious rumor about that person. Now, how does it impact the person who has to go through it? Well, in different forms, it can impact the mental health of the person. The person can go through a lot of depression, stress, anxiety, and it can generally impact his or her overall well-being and also bring down his or her, his attitude towards work. Now, often a victim remains silent, though he or she may face it on and off in the workplace, but has to remain silent because of the consequences that may befall on the person. Yes, because we are all dependent on our finances that comes or the salary that we get at the end of the month and the other social and economic consequences. So the victim often hushes up these facts or just remains silent. But then, as I said, it can have a very long-lasting impact on the person that goes through it off and on, and maybe sometimes on a regular basis. So what does the law book say? Are there laws and regulations that can prevent, and can one take recourse to those laws and regulations if one is harassed at the workplaces? Well, today we will be talking about the entire gamut of this situation. We will be understanding what is workplace harassment. We will also be understanding how does it impact the mental health of the person, and of course the legal aid that one can take to prevent such a situation and to have a more normal atmosphere in the workplace. Well, to tell us all about these aspects, we are joined in the panel today, and let me go ahead and introduce our panelists to you. To my immediate left is Dr. Marba Byang Emle. She is the Dean of Social Work in Martin Luther Christian University, MLCU. We are also joined by Dr. Chainika Sharma. She is a consultant psychiatrist from Supercare Hospital, Shillong. And on my extreme left is Shri Rahabul H. Alice. He is an advocate of the Meghalaya High Court, and he is also a legal aid counsel of the High Court. So there you have it. These are our panelists for today. Thank you so much, each one of you, for coming to the studios of Doordarshan and for this topic that we have taken up. Indeed, a very significant topic, I must say, that we need to discuss, we need to pass information to the people, because so many people, go through it and maybe remain silent. So warm welcome to each one of you once again.
Thank you so much for having us.
So I come to you, Marba, because, when we are trying to understand what is workplace harassment, as I said in my introduction, that often in today's professional world, one can't go through it.
Right.
Yeah. So can you explain to us what is workplace harassment?
So workplace harassment is basically include a whole spectrum of these unwanted actions or behaviors or communication that can happen, and they're not very pleasant enough, irrespectively, even among the employees, that they can face. And these harassment can be in the form of a verbal harassment. It can be in the form of psychological harassment, you know. It can be in the form of bullying also. You have mentioned in introduction where you talk about bullying, or even discrimination also. So sometimes these things, perhaps when we look at this, sometimes we feel that it can happen either intentionally or unintentionally, with the person they don't really realize that it's actually part of harassment. They were actually part of harassment, but then when you see the impact of it that it has, it can actually deters the person's, you know, the person's performance in terms of, you know, they cannot perform well. The morale will actually really come down, you know. So that is what workplace harassment that you can see, you know. That's why I said it can be intentionally when it talks about communication. Sometimes it can be with the words that we say. We don't mean it, you know. So, or maybe we can mean it, I don't know. It can be either way.
So when does it become a problem?
I think it become a problem when it actually affect the person performance, when we actually see that the person is really, you know,
is it
cannot
repetitive
meet
when it is
deadlines.
repetitive again and again?
It can be repetitive. You know, sometimes, you know, when we look at workplace harassment, it's very difficult to actually draw the line whether it's actually harassment or not harassment, because sometimes it can be a very, you know, it can happen just once, and perhaps maybe, like for example, if it happened to me, I would say, oh, it's just one time, you know, I will not take it as harassment. But I think if it happened in a continuous basis, where I feel as a person, I feel that my morale has actually come down. I feel that I cannot, uncomfortable to go to work, and I don't have that joy or pleasure to actually go to work. You know, we spend most of the time at the workplace for about 7 to 8 hours at the workplace, and that place should be a place where it's fun to work with. And that's where, when we're able to do that, we'll be able to give our best, and also we'll have that job satisfaction, what we say. You know, so that's very important.
Right. Yeah, what you said is very true, because most of our hours are spent at the work, you know, place, where we want to deliver the best, right? Our productivity level grows as we grow along with the job. But as Marwa said, that it can happen once. But you know, I bring you in, Dr. Chainika, whether it happens once or repetitive, how much does it impact the victim or the person that goes through it?
Workplace harassment have immense detrimental impact, both physically and mentally, on the victim. So when we say, when we see the physical impact, we'll see that the physical health deteriorates. That I'll come later on. But it first causes immense psychological distress. So because of the distress, the person starts feeling low, loses interest in work, and then have anger issues, have even pessimistic thoughts, low mood, and with all these things, he may lose concentration in his activities also, and ultimately all this may result in mental health issues in the long run. Like the person may have developed depression, anxiety, post-traumatic stress disorders, even pessimistic thought leading to suicides, suicidal thoughts, psychosis. So lots of stress-related issues can also be seen. And if the harassment is a long process, then it will have an impact on the health also. Because if a person is chronically stressed, it affects the immune system, and along with that, the person may develop different physical illness, like say chronic headache, gastrointestinal symptoms, bowel upset, not eating well, not sleeping well, even heart problem, then say diabetes. All these sickness, the chronic sicknesses get exacerbated because of chronic chronic stress from harassment.
Yeah, from the workplace. Yeah. You know, I will bring in Rahabul very shortly into this also, when we look at the legal aspect of it. But then I come back to you, Marba, because you know, it is said that women often also goes through it more than men. I'm not too sure how, but then research says that women employees tends to go through it more often because there is a man on the top, or maybe there are other you know, bosses on the top. But then when we are talking about harassment, Marba, does it happen only from a senior to a junior, or it can also happen within your same you know, workforce, within your peers?
Yeah, I think when we talk about harassment, about who is more vulnerable to it, I see that everyone are vulnerable to it. Of course, research have found that women are more vulnerable, especially when we talk about sexual harassment. We see that most of these cases are actually are women, but I'm not saying men do not face it either. But I think we are all vulnerable in the workplace, and it will not really happen only between, only from the superior to the subordinate.
Yes, yeah.
It can also happen among the peers as well, because I've read some of the research that says that many of these harassment, they are unintentional, but then sometimes when we speak, or sometimes when we in the whole process of while we're working or discussing things, we might unintentionally harm the other person, but then that person has actually hurt. But again, this also depends upon the person's personality.
Because not everybody has the same mental capacity,
exactly.
right?
So not everyone like that, and that's the reason why we have seen that some people, they can really cope up with it, like what ma'am have said, about how do people, what are the repercussions that can happen when harassment happen. Some people can cope with it well, some people they can't.
Right.
And that's why we must have all observe, around a surrounding and all of that in the environment that we live in, the society we live in, that we realize this person, let's say for example, I see that suddenly this person is depending on alcohol from when they started working. We have seen some of these cases like this, and they say, what happened? Oh, it must be the workplace. We don't know what is happening inside the workplace of the person. Perhaps maybe there might be, or maybe it's influence also, we don't really know. But I see that alcohol is one of the form that perhaps maybe it's a form of a coping on how they cope with the stress, and they get into smoking and then things like that.
Yeah. Because I know of a particular case where this lady, she goes, she has some kind of issues in the workplace, and then even before she could reach the gate of her institution, she actually faints.
Right.
And it's a repetitive occurrence, and she had no answer to it. But then later on she realized it is because of the continuous intimidation and
humiliation.
The kind of humiliation she would often face. But then fortunately, I think we have to bring in now Rahabul. There are legal recourse to it, right? So Rahabul, can you enlighten us, at what point of time does a workplace harassment become serious enough that one has to go and take legal aid or legal help?
Actually, before 2013, so whatever the harassment was handled, it was the under section 354 and 509 IPC. After then this thing, when the problem came, so after that our legislature has enacted one special act. So it is like women harassment at workplace. It was enforced in 2013. So in that, like, some direction was provided to the employer to constitute one internal committee, so that like if anyone can will face this harassment, so they can bring it to the notice of that committee.
Internal Complaints Committee, ICC.
ICC.
So every institution is to have an ICC committee.
It's now it's mandatory to every this institute, they have to constitute.
Now, when you are saying institution, does it mean all private and government?
Yeah, it's like all the private and the government also. They have to institute. In case they cannot, so there is a district officer who will look after that harassment.
All right. So that means there are laws, there are mechanisms. But then I was wondering also, Rahabul, when does it become serious enough that even the internal complaints committee, supposing a victim brings it up, but no action is taken. So when does this person actually has to take the help of law? And you said that there is only a law which deals with harassment for women. What about the men? They also go through?
Actually, that committee, men are also getting the same legal aids in that committee also. But as per like the act, so women are given more preference. Preference is given more. So and moreover, that IPC section is still open for if anyone is not like satisfied with that one, they can go for other. In parallel, they can go to the police and they can complain, and they can register the case under section 354 and this 509.
So I was asking you, when does it become so serious that one has to go for legal aid? So when is that stage when one has to take a legal help? At what point of that of that harassment? Because sometimes, as Marba said, that it can happen small little misunderstandings. But when does a person actually need to take the hands of the law?
That means it's depend on the victim only. If she is like feels like I am getting bullied by the employer, so she have every right. he or she have every right to go and face the
to take the help of the law. But then, you know, Rahabul, I was just wondering, often it happens and the person, the victim, doesn't have any proof. Does one need to have some proof before one goes to for legal help?
Like solo testimony is also like we can base on the solo testimony of the victim also. It's not that if she have to bring all the documents or like any videos or whatever it is evidence. So the team will inquire everything if it's actually happened or not. After that, they used to take action as per the service rule of that institute. Yeah, but then, you know, a person would, I think we will all understand that everybody, these days jobs are hard to come by. It's difficult for one to get a job, and one is often silent because they fear that he or she may lose the job. So what kind of protection will the court give, supposing this victim feels that she or he may lose her job or his job? Is there any such protection that is given to the person during the course of the when the case is on, that the person cannot be removed from the workplace till such time? Till such time, if she wants, she can take like for apply for the leave or sometime for after that, if the inquiry will be over. So if she wants, she can be transferred to some other branch also. All right. Okay, we'll come back to you after just in a little while. I'll just bring you in, Dr. Chainika, again. As you said, you know, the mental health, as it is, people these days have a lot of pressure that they have to go through. The very fact that one has to drive all the way and go to a workplace is pressure enough. And then when you reach the workplace after a lot of difficulty maneuvering through all the traffic, which builds up a lot of high blood pressure for people, and then when you have to face that, have you, as a psychiatrist, come across such cases in your hospital, or have you dealt with such cases?
Yes, we definitely got people with who came with stress related issues or depression, anxiety because of problems in the workplace. So many times we see that when they face this type of situation, they first of all they lose interest in work. So they are less motivated to go for work. They are less engaged in their roles they are playing. And in the long run, this thing affects them to the extent that the interpersonal relationship get affected. They feel the workplace as hostile. They feel uncomfortable and unsafe to go there. And in the long run, they develop the mental issues and the physical illnesses as well, that they need professional help.
Because the mind and the body is quite attuned to each other, right? So if the mind is not feeling good, I think it will have an impact on the physical aspect also. Marba, these days often what happens is that a newcomer, a fresher may have just got, and there is something called, little harassment. It happens in school, not in schools, maybe in colleges, maybe or institutions. We have heard of ragging, something called ragging. So what is the differentiation between, say, a simple case of ragging for a fresher and a harassment?
I think we have to really define ragging and harassment because these are two different terms altogether. And I think when we talk about ragging and harassment for a person, I'll go back again to what I said, it always differs from one person to another. There will be one person who will be able to actually cope it well and find out ways and means how to actually cope with all of these challenges that I meet as a fresher, let's say, for example. Or it can be that a person can't. And this person, to talk about how serious the offenses is, when we talk about workplace harassment, let's not to delve into the sexual harassment, but into the workplace harassment, it actually has got to do with the person, himself, whether that person can actually deal with it or not. Is very, how serious the offenses is. Because sometimes, let's say, for example, I can deal with it. I'll just share you an example of a friend of mine who's working in this one, who's actually working, and then the moment she started working, she realized that her top bosses, started objectifying her and saying things and all of that, and then which makes her feel very uncomfortable in the workplace, although she's very happy to work in that to be started working, and she's just a fresher. And then because of the type of personality she has, and I asked her, what did you do when when things like this happened? She said, I shut him up. So basically you were able to stand for yourself, no? So and then I said, what happened? And then I said that it deters into your work. I said, no, it does not. Because people, actually the people who harass intentionally know that they harass someone else or they harass someone else, and they know they're in the wrong. When someone shut them up, they actually realize that, oh, what I did is wrong. So how can I go and complain? How can I go and complain to someone else about this girl when I know that what I said is actually wrong? So that also, again, like I said, depends upon a person. So I said, does it affect? He said, no. And then that actually, when she did that, what happened is, this person must have told all the other people, and then they stop. They become very respectful.
So taking a stance for oneself is very important.
It's very important. It's very important to take a stand.
Another little quick thing, our reference I want to make here. Harassment can also take place based on one's sexual orientation.
Exactly.
Right? Chanika, you want to say anything on this? On one, because now we also have the other gender, right? I mean, he or she may not be in that slotted of being in that gender group or whatever. So supposing somebody is a bit different, he or she can get bullied again, right?
Yes, sexual orientation based harassment is also very common in workplace. So basically, we rather than seeing it as a separate thing, we have to see it as a harassment.
Right. Okay.
So it's a harassment on a person. So the type of harassment, even in workplace, now suppose some works are stereotyped. For example, nursing. It is said that ladies should be nurse, and if there is a male nurse, there is a little like a demarcation in that, or a discrimination. So in the workplace, if it is gender based, I think it should be rather treated as a harassment rather than taking it as a gender.
Okay, all right. So yeah, and Rahabul, if one has to really bring in a complaint, what does one have to do?
Actually, the oral complaint is not acceptable. Whatever we have to give in written the complaint before the committee.
Right.
So after that only they will take action. In case like if the victim or expire, so in the meantime, so the other relatives or any close the other employee, they can also bring to the notice of the committee.
And despite the person not being there anymore, will still get some kind of a respite.
Yeah, they will get the compensation also. They will get the compensation along with the whatever the punishment penalties will be imposed to the that person also.
Okay, all right, okay. So what we understand is that the laws are in place, regulations are there. I mean, every institute is supposed to have the ICC within its institution. Yet such cases keeps happening. So as we are almost winding up, let me come back again to each one of you. Marbabyang, how does one deal with it? And I also thought I should also bring this in. Why does it happen at all?
I think first of all, it happened because of that feeling of superiority. It can happen, and I think we all, when you actually started working, there is a hierarchy at the workplace, and you always feel that, oh, I have subordinate something. This mindset. I would say these are very immature mindset that we have, because when you are a leader, you're supposed to actually, when you say supposed to lead, not actually very because typical lead, but actually guide and
they say
supervise.
That leaders create more leaders.
Exactly. Yes. So we're supposed to actually guide and help them. So when we look about how to prevent, and I think in order to prevent oneself, I'm looking at this from 3 levels. I'm looking from the first level, of course, the employer. From the employer point of view, they should have the ICC, and having the ICC, that's not enough. I think it's important that also that each employee should organize some kind of good organized workshops or seminars and things to create awareness, to make people aware about what is harassment. To make people understand that there is such thing, like if you do this, it's actually harassment.
This is the
because many people might not know that it's actually harassment, and also create a zero tolerance policy and having kind of an open door policy that they're very open to this, and nothing such thing will happen if you actually come and complain, because many people stay silent on this. The reason is because they're scared that they might lose their job. The second, they might if you actually have to complain, or if the organization, if the employer itself have to actually go for to the court, it has got some legal repercussions where many employees will not want to do that. And and then also it might also deter many of the people who would want to join the position. That is from the employer. So these workshops will actually help people aware. From the second perspective, I'm actually looking, or the second level, I'm actually looking from the peer perspective. It's very important that we support each other in the workplace, and I'm very fortunate to be in a kind of an institution where we have that kind of support for each other, and I think that's very important. That could actually prevent any kind of harassment that can happen, and we can actually have a talk, whether you mean it, you don't mean it, but have a communication. And that's why we said harassment is about this communication. Sometimes it's a miscommunication, right? And third level, I was looking from the individual perspective. No one can protect you except yourself. It's very important to be able to stand up for yourself, be assertive. It's all right if you feel that any person is actually, you feel uncomfortable, if you feel that that person is telling you things that will makes you create to be working in a very hostile environment, you have every right to actually say no. You have every right to actually complain, rather than just keeping silent about it, because that will actually affect not only you but your whole team.
Yes.
So this is very important to look from the preventive, productive of the workplace itself. Right. So the precautions will be from the employer perspective. It all goes boil back up to the higher level. Then we can see the the achievement of the employer.
Absolutely, very, very wonderfully said, Marba. But then, Dr. Chainika, as we are wrapping up and all that, one needs to take a stance for himself or herself?
Definitely. Any form of harassment shouldn't be tolerated.
And the role of the boss also here?
Yes. So nowadays, fortunately, all the institutes, they have their committees, ICC, and the policies are there. So everyone, whoever faces harassment, they should come forward, report about it, and go through the procedure so that they get justice. Along with that, they should also take care of their own mental health. Because many a times we see people who have poor coping skills or who have poor life skills, they break out on small things. So everyone should take care of their own mental health. They should practice mindfulness. They should build up resilience so that anything comes in, they can fight it out. Take the problem as a challenge rather than breaking down. And always have the attitude that yes, I can do it.
Right, wonderful. And quick closing comments from you?
Ma'am, I am agree with the madams. Yes. Until and unless we are bring into the notice of the committee, then we will not be able to get the benefit of the act also. Right. So awareness is very important, and it should come from the public also. Public rally should be also done.
Awareness.
Awareness program should be done. Right. Then only we'll come to know that, because, and moreover, the act is very new. It's only in 10 years, I think, 2013. So many will not know that there are such act enacted.
Right. So I think that is a very good point that he said, that I think in every workplace many people may not know that there is a special act,
and the procedure also they will be not
aware of it.
Okay, wonderful, wonderful. I think I really agree with each one of you that there should be zero tolerance to such cases of harassment, that one should build up oneself, also take a stand on oneself, and if it really goes out of hand, then there are laws in place also that one can take recourse to. Thank you so much, Marba Byang, Dr. Marba Byang, Dr. Chainika and Rahul, for coming to the studios of Doordarshan and enlightening our people, our viewers here so much about this, because this is a practice that is often not spoken about. As I said, the common fear is there of losing one's job, or the freshers who may just bear it in silence. But it is not good actually, because it can have a very harmful impact on the body and the mind of that person. Speak and try to get some kind of help when such a thing happens to oneself. Okay, so on that note, thank you so much. Well then, viewers, so that's the topic that we have discussed today, and that is of course harassment at the workplace. I'm sure that today, as you listened to all our panelists, you would also agree that this is a happening thing. Yes, it does happen. It does take place. It is not something that is alien. It has never happened. It does. But then there are laws in place. And as our panelists and Marba and Dr. Chainika said, that one needs to be resilient and strong also to face. And sometimes you have to shut out the perpetrator, and so that he or she never ever actually dares to do that with you anymore. So be strong, be resilient, and face the world. Well, on that note, it's a wrap of this program. Thank you so much for joining us, and until next time, from all of us here, it's wishing you goodbye.